Dr. Sujata from Cuttack. And she joined recently in our network. So this is the team all about.
Sir, we are live to the world.
Sophia has worked out
Sir, we are live
on.
to the world, Facebook and YouTube. You have to bear with me because we are going with alternate technology. Just don't move away. We will keep coming back. We are live to the world, sir.
So same problem. I had problem with the desktop, went to laptop, back to desktop. These are all technology features. We should all move in spite of all these technologies actually. So once you give me the green signal,
we are ready, sir. We are live to the world now, Facebook and YouTube.
Namaskar, welcome. And today we have a topic COP26 and democracy. And I invite Sanya Singhal, the young volunteer, and to begin the show. You can start introducing the present and also give some details of the other panelists who will join later. Okay.
Sure, sir.
So you can start with our guest speaker to introduce, and the floor is yours. Okay.
So the impact of climate change is faced at a global level, from Gurugram to Germany and from Kenya to Korea. Good evening to one and all present over here. I'm Sanya Singhal, a student of Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad. I'm extremely honored and feel privileged to have been given the opportunity to address everyone on this very special occasion. We all have gathered here to have a panel discussion for the debate during the 26th UN Climate Change Conference, which is scheduled to be held in the city of Glasgow, Scotland. The motto of our meet is to try and connect the principles of democracy, namely participation, access to information, and decision-making with its practices. The motto of our meet is to encourage public opinions and ideas for the protection of environment at common man's level, as he is the biggest sufferer. It is our immense pleasure to get an opportunity to have such great personalities as Sophia Cortina ma'am, Honorable Lucy Shogo ma'am, Rituraj Fukan sir, Philbert Sekka sir, Murali Krishnan sir, Professor Purushottam Reddy sir, and Subbarao sir for the panel discussion. Sophia Cortina ma'am holds a law degree from the National Autonomous University of Mexico. She also did graduate courses on environmental governance and democracy in the Great Britain and in project management dynamics with the German Foundation International. Has worked in the environmental sector, designing public environmental policies. Lucy Shogo ma'am is a trained teacher serving currently as a member of County Assembly in Kenya. She advocates for grassroots women, girls, and ensures adherence to gender responsive budgeting. She is a special needs student brand ambassador in Kenya, a former trade unionist who has represented women issues, obtained higher education from Norway in the field of gender empowerment. Rituraj Fukan sir is an environmental writer, adventurer, and naturalist from Assam, a biodiversity-rich climate change impacted province in the northeast of India. He is a founder of Indigenous Peoples Climate Justice Forum and also serves as the vice president of the US-based Grassroots Coalition for Environmental and Economic Justice. He is a member of the International Union for Conservation of Nature and sits on the board of civil society groups in Americas, Europe, and Australia. Sir has personally experienced the impacts of climate change in the polar frontiers of the Arctic and Antarctic, in the Himalayas and across India. Having worked extensively at the grassroots, he says water is the local issue of global climate change for people and for biodiversity. He is driven by the concerns over glacial loss in the water towers. of Asia and is currently working on an initiative to mobilize civil society action in the countries of the Himalayan region. Filbert Seka Sir obtained a certificate in good governance and management of rural development programs at National Institute of Rural Development, Hyderabad, India. Presently, he is the president of the Center for Leadership and Character Education, an organization that has chapters in 9 African countries. He led many training programs in USA with African educators and youth leaders in support of SDGs under the Grand International Youth Leadership and Educator Conference. Dr. Emmanuel Adusa is a professor in the Initium College of Liberal Arts at Sun Moon University and teaches 3 different courses: basic principles of public administration, the art and science of leadership, cultural understanding, and global citizenship. He has been assisting the international students, helping them to adjust to their new educational environment and the Korean culture. He is also the coordinator of the Global Vice President Network that aims to promote the internationalization of Sun Moon University and create a global platform to nurture leaders who will contribute to the development of a peaceful world. Murali Krishna Sir is an engineer, philosopher, and author and has more than 4 decades of professional contributions. To his credit, his books are used in 58 universities in 19 countries in America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia as textbooks or prescribed suggested reading. His name comes up first in the internet searches using a technical phrase, test effort estimation. A list of universities stocking his books can be found in the website www.worldcard.organization. He was awarded the fellow by Indian Institute of Industrial Engineering in 1997. Senior member, he is the senior member of IEEE and a senior member Computer Society of India, active community volunteer and promoted community participation in research of community involvement. Professor Purushottam Reddy Sir, widely known as a man of environment and masses, championed for causes of planet and people, and his mission continues and inspires millions across the nation. Has more than 4 decades of professional career, he promotes principles and practices of democratic governance in addressing environment conflicts and follows non-violent paths of Mahatma Gandhi while conducting public protests for the cause of environment. Professor's long public life and activism spans across areas such as environmental policies, public policies on sustainable development, restoration of damaged ecosystems, conservation of natural resources, sustainable agriculture, water resources, academic and youth empowerment, panchayat raj, and rural development. Subara Sir, hydrologist by profession and has more than 4 decades professional experience, obtained higher education from University of Roorkee and IIT Bombay. Learning by experience, he gained expertise in the area of environment development and climate change, associated with Gandhi and Institute for 8 years, promotes community centered development projects and motivates communities, particularly youth, for active involvement. Has experience working with diversified cultures in more than 8 countries, trainer and educator on resources, literacy, and management, headed team in bring out environment status report on combined Andhra Pradesh Citizen State Report 1990. Participated in UN conference including World Earth Summits and 13 international workshops. Promotes and conducts trainings on democratic principles in environment governance.
Thank you, Sania. And without taking much time, we have two very important, panelists before us and one observer, Murli Krishna. And the main issue is, you see, a lot of debate is going on at the international level, right from Stockholm conference. But seldom back home, we don't see the percolation of information, what has happened at the global level at, at different strata of any given country. So I would like to, I would like to know the opinions of the panelists. So ladies are first. So I ask Sophia Cortina her opinion on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Subarao. Well, thanks for inviting me to this panel. I'm really honored of this. And I want to say that environmental democracy should consider the prior consultation and public participation mechanism and a specific legislation as a key to preventing conflicts. Latin American countries have a huge number of rights violation on environmental activists. Mexican government ratified the Escazú Agreement last year, which is a regional agreement on access to information, public participation, and access to justice in environmental matters in Latin America and the Caribbean countries. It's the world's first binding agreement on environmental democracy and embodies Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration of Environment and Development. It will contribute to achievement of the SDGs and the 2030 Agenda. One of the most important mechanisms for the respect and protection in the human rights of indigenous people is the right to free, prior, and informed consultation, which is the backbone of Convention 169 of the International Labour Organization, the most important international legal instrument relating to this group. In Mexico, this right is on the Mexican Constitution. We have a protocol which has to follow whenever a legislation or a project which may harm the rights or violate their integrity. We have to guarantee also the woman and girls' rights, considering they are the most vulnerable group in Mexico. In my country, there's been like 163 activists that were murdered because of the defense of environment. So the NGOs push the government to sign and ratify the Escazú agreement, that it's a very important international mechanism to protect these people. That's my initiative.
Thank you, Sophia, for this. And now I would like to know the viewpoints of Mr. Rituraj Pukan, please.
Thank you, sir, and a very good evening to all the distinguished panelists and viewers. I think it's so important that this webinar on the topic of democracy and COP26 is organized on this International Day of Democracy, and especially with the recent call by the Climate Action Network, the CAN, to postpone the COP26 because of the lack of possibility of inclusivity that we want it to reflect. Now, we cannot ignore CAN because the Climate Action Network happens to be older than the IPCC itself and represents more than 1,500 civil society groups across almost all the countries of the world. The reason for this call is that COP26 in these circumstances will not be democratic. So I think it's so relevant. And why that is, it is because the UK and the co-host Italy has decided that there are three kinds of countries. They have been categorized into red, green, amber, and green. So most of the countries which are in the green group happens to be the developed countries, which will have free access to travel to COP. And whereas countries which are in the red zone will have to quarantine for at least 10 days, even if they are vaccinated, once they reach UK. And then in the middle, we have the amber group of countries, and currently India is listed as an amber country. And here, the original requirement was that they would have to be quarantined for 5 days if they're fully vaccinated and 10 days if they're not. Now, after the CAN announcement, there was a very quick retort by the UK organizers, and they said that they will bear the cost of quarantine. And in the meanwhile, those who are coming from amber countries like India will not, and if they're fully vaccinated, they will not need to be quarantined at all. However, there is also a question of whether this quarantine cost will be uh, inclusive of the cost of quarantine that participants will have to bear when they come back to their respective countries. Uh, the second most important part in this is that what we understood. By the way, I just came to this webinar straight from a COP26 webinar with the Citizens Climate International and various other groups, and the deliberations were regarding, how best to proceed. I myself has got a UNFCCC accreditation to attend the COP, and I am traveling for my visa interview in about a week. Uh, at my own cost, of course. And since I stay in Assam, we don't have a biometric fingerprinting center here, so I have to travel to Kolkata at my own cost for the fingerprinting, and all with the hope that I will be able to go and represent uh, the indigenous communities of the global south who are uh, somehow not really represented in such negotiations. And since I have an observer badge, I'll be able to be right there in the negotiations. Now, 130 countries have no access to vaccinations. That means all of us who are going to be attending the COP, even if it is a hybrid event, with some representatives to make it democratic, to some representatives allowed from almost every country, you are basically exposing yourself to any of those new uh, variants of the virus, whether it is Delta or any other viruses that we do not know of. So, considering all these riders and various circumstances, we really have to think whether COP26 will be as democratic as we want it to be, because I think at this moment of time, we also must realize that global climate negotiations have already taken a backseat for the last 1 year. The countries were supposed to ratchet up ambitions last year, but it has been pushed back, and we know the kind of impacts that we have seen across the world this summer. We really cannot delay the negotiations. So with that, I end my initial comments. Thank you.
Sir Subbarao Saab. Sanya asked some next one to speak because.
Sure, sir. Sure. Professor Emmanuel, sir, would you like to say something on the issue?
I think we have lost him, and there is some connectivity issues with many of the participants, I guess.
I think, okay, I'm the observer. So shall I say something so that, we can keep on until Mr. Subbarao comes back?
Yes, sir, please.
Do I have your permission, sir, Rutulas, Sophia, and all others?
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. There are two issues, environment and democracy. Democracy has taken root in the sense that most of Europe, I think entire Europe, and most of Asia, and some parts of Africa and Latin America have taken up democracy, and regular elections are being conducted. But the Middle East, elections and democratic process has not really taken root. So democracy also needs to be improved. We will have to spread the democracy, and all people have a access to voting and electing their rulers. I would not say leaders, but the rulers. And that is one point. Second, climate, even though what happens in Afghanistan or Peru or Chile may not concern me in USA or in India, but what happens in India and China concerns the entire world, not only India, but for that matter, Brazil or Chile or anything. If the Amazon forests are being cut down, it really affects the entire globe, not just Brazil. And one important aspect or interesting aspect is that 90% of the human population on the earth lives above the equator in the northern hemisphere. In that 90%, 5 east and 95 east, that is about 30 degrees longitude, 30 into 4 minutes is 120 minutes from beginning to the end. Nearly 60-70% of the human population lives in between these two lines, longitudes, lie the countries of India and China, together with a population of 3 billion, and add to that Russia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, all these countries, it will be more than 50% of the total population. And what happens in this between these two longitudes concerns the world, and the world has to take notice of this population and take some action. You know why? In India, the burning of firewood for cooking has really come down, but it is still a vast amount of people, especially in rural and tribal areas. They still use firewood and produce a lot of smoke. And the usage of automobiles, I think, has gone up beyond imagination. In the 60s and to some part early 70s too, when a car went on the road 2 miles from my house, I used to get the smell. Now, a diesel truck goes by side of my house, I don't even smell it, because the entire environment and air is filled with the smoke of diesel and petrol. And so they are producing so much of pollutants just because of the population. 3.5 billion people, they do produce waste. They do produce pollutants. And what is pumped into the sea will not stay in Indian Ocean by the shores of India. It will travel all over the world and reach the shores of every country in the world. And the toxins that are pumped here will have effect on the entire environment. So how do we bring these people or bring this region to improve the climate. There is a requirement of resources, but because we have advanced, we need raw materials, ores, and labor to produce the goods that are required for our comfortable living and luxurious living. And these have to be somewhere they dig up. Earlier, every country was digging in their own backyard to mine the ores and fuel. And it was said at one time in the 1950s that the whole England was filled up with coal mines, that it can cave in any time. Now they have completely filled up all the coal mines. They started importing. And importing means it has to be mined again. Canada, Australia, India, China, South America, and then wood. Most of the houses in the Europe and America, where the temperatures fall below 0 degrees Celsius, is constructed with wood. Their forests are cut up. India's forests are cut up. China forests are cut up. And now Brazil's forests are being cut up. When a tree takes 20, 30 years to grow, and when you cut it down, takes not even 10 minutes with all these new equipment, tree cutting equipment. And to grow it, it takes 20 years. If you plant a tree on the day you cut a tree. Subbarao, we were missing you, so I started saying something.
The whole problem is some technical problems today. And sorry for,
Rituraj has completed his presentation.
Yeah, and
so
Rituraj,
please take over.
Rituraj, hope you could you could give your views on the participation actually. And the second point, welcome to Dr. Emmanuel from South Korea. Welcome to Patro and others. The most important thing is, you see, unless and until the information is made available to the people, and people also should understand the gravity, relevance, and importance of these debates. Okay? To what extent the member countries back home doing exercise in information dissemination. Okay? Let me ask Sophia Kartina. Naveen Reddy, welcome. Sophia, please.
Okay.
Back home, you see, if, I have not visited, I could only visit Brazil, but not, but you have you might be having the three-tier governing system where the village head is the main prime important person. So does it percolate up to the village level, the informations?
Well, not really. We have in the legislation, we have the obligation to give all the information for protect mostly the Indians' rights and the women's right. But in the government right now, there's a lot of ignorance about it. And they're trying because they have to, but they have another projects that are much more important to enforce than the rights of the people. So they are keeping a lot of information with the security principle, and that makes us, like NGOs, very difficult our work to protect this information right for the protection of the Indian rights and the women rights. So that's a huge problem that we are having right now with this government.
Okay. Now I turn to Mr. Rituraj. Rituraj, India was quite active right from, very beginning of the COP exercises at the global level. At summit, yes, I witnessed, and back home we tried to translate the, whatever little just in vernacular language and disseminate it. But I have not come across any such exercise, you know, you know, bringing out these, agreements in the vernacular languages and making an attempt to reach to the village governance level. I may be wrong or I may be correct. I would like to know your views on this.
Thank you, sir. I think it is absolutely important that whatever our country commits on the global stage, and even all the national stated goals that we make as a nation should be translated into vernacular languages so that the information is disseminated down to the grassroots, and without which none of the targets that we want to achieve will ever be achieved. Because we know that most of the people uh, at the grassroots are living a very low quality of life, a hand-to-mouth existence. Um, at the best, there are subsistence farmers, and for them, decisions like uh, phasing out of coal, curtailment of deforestation, or switching over to electric vehicles, investment in renewables. All these are alien conversations. They do not understand unless these things, these decisions, why they need to be taken, why it is important to their own aspirations in life, as an individual, as a family, as a society, is important. How it can affect their well-being.
Yeah,
Now,
that is, no, you brought out very correctly and to the point. As I was observing, right from PrepCom and then the summit and subsequent conferences. Welcome to Purushottam Reddy garu. So what I look at is at the Earth Summit, there was a big campaign, uh, one planet, one family, one future. Okay. So if it is one family, one planet, and one future, the family members across the globe should understand their stakes. Yes. So how do we take this? This is a big challenge what I'm looking at. Because most of the, as you rightly pointed out, most of the national programs also, even drought mitigation program, which started after the first parliament, okay, in India, way back in 1955, the soil conservation program, that was also part of an international, agreement. But to my understanding, a farmer in the remotest village, he does not connect himself to the soil erosion, you know, at the and the national goals and the international targets. Same thing is happening, keeping on happening, and seldom we are giving adequate time for the people to gear up, understand, these simplified things. And any comment, Sophia?
Yes, well, in my experience here in Mexico, the NGOs are really an important part of this. They have a lot of good methodologies to work with the people to translate all the information, and as I can say, in the last 20 years, this work it's transformed the way the Indian people are working with and how they are trying to get the respect of their own rights. And it's as when I was working with the government, that was really a huge step in the democracy, in the environmental democracy, with working with these groups. So I think there's the way to get the people in with the information and with all the things, all the aspects they have to knowledge to do this.
Yeah, I understand this, but Rituraj, I'm coming to you again. You see, I think in early 90s, a big fad started on people's participation. Robert Chambers, okay? Talking to people has become a specialized subject in this country and the world. But whereas across the Africa, Latin America, and Asia, even when you travel in a bus, the fellow passenger will talk to you. He'll love to talk to you. And most of these participatory approaches, I feel, are restricted to the funded projects. Am I correct or wrong?
Is it me, sir, to answer that? Well, I'd just like to add one more thing to, I think, all the comments that we have been hearing. The key challenge for India is the diversity. For example, in Mexico, I know like almost everything is in Spanish, and even the best agreements, the commitments done by the government are readily and are already done in Espanol. Whereas in India, the language differs from state to state, and in some places, in the Northeast especially, there are so many dialects and languages, and by some counts, the number of languages that are around in India exceeds 800, though officially the count is about, I think, 25 or 30. So it becomes a big challenge to communicate and translate all these commitments and statements made by the government into languages that is easily understood by the masses.
Yeah, I understand this. What I'm looking at is, I understand the Herculean task in India. And similarly, we have the similar problem with, not the problem, but challenge with African countries. We have so many dialects, okay? And more so, like, French local dialect in West Africa, and you have British dialect in some other parts of the Africa. But the thing is, you have a three-tier system, where you go to the village level and start explaining to the people. Particularly in Africa, you need to take the permission from a village head to start any project. Okay? And in India, we have what is called the local governments. If it is disseminated in Hindi, the local governments can take care of the local dialect. Yes or no? We are only looking into the bottlenecks and the hurdles, but we are not simplifying the solutions and approach methodologies. Because most of it goes to the, even I have equal, more, work experience with the NGOs and all. But even among the NGOs, there is very little attempt, to translate and go to the local dialect. And that is one bottleneck what I see, disseminating the global agreements to the local level. So what we are trying is, there are several bottlenecks in making the people to understand. And through this debate, can we identify the specific problems? How do we make our objective is, how do we make the people to understand the gravity of global agreements? Because they are facing it. Today, the last 10 days, the Gujarat, Rajkot area, which is a drought-prone semi-arid zone, is full of floods. So we cannot escape from this task of sensitizing the people on these aspects of it. So what I am trying, and I request Sania, please note these points, where we can, discuss and find the solutions of it. We may not find the solutions, but we may identify the steps, mechanisms towards this. One is, how do we percolate the information to the common man's level? Which are the institutions which can help information? Okay. And the second thing is, how participate? Because they are the victims. They are the victims. How do we take this? These are the two things what I feel, transparency, accountability, all it is there. But first thing is access to information, dissemination of information, promoting awareness, sensitizing people, and making them to participate in whatever language they would like to. Okay? Yeah, please, Dr. Emmanuel, as an observer, please.
First of all, this privilege in this accessibility
Your audio is getting disturbed. Just check it.
Okay. So how about now?
It's fine. It's fine.
I was using this one because people are sleeping. It's past almost 1 a.m. here in Korea. So, yeah. Anyway, let me greet all of you for this beautiful gathering. I was just listening to you, and as an African, somehow I feel a bit saddened. And why am I saying that? As the Honorable Sir mentioned, language actually, like you mentioned, like in India, more than 800 language. Ghana, the language, I always, instead of connecting people, it most of the time, sometimes divides the people. Let me give one example. We know that we were colonized like many of your country out there. And Ghana was colonized by England, and all the countries surrounding Ghana were colonized by France. So can you really begin to see the issue here? Then the most unfortunate aspect was that my own tribe were divided into two, exactly, one in Cote d'Ivoire and one in Ghana. So imagine, when we people from Ghana meet our own brothers and sisters from the other side, they're foreign to us. All of our own languages are mixed with French. Some Ghana, the mixed with English. So even though we are the same people, but because somebody didn't recognize, we have this tendency. So for example, when it comes to my culture and somebody does not know how to speak his own languages, people don't really see problem with that. But when he cannot speak French or English, this guy is kind of unpolished, it's uncivilized. So they make us even ashamed of our own language. So I think one task that we have to do right now, as maybe people want to find a solution to our problem, is how do you make our own people proud of their own languages? That should be one step. If you want people to want the information to be disseminated from maybe the upper to the lower, I think people first of all should be proud of their own languages. They love their languages, they're proud of it, so that when you just begin to translate something in their own language, they're proud of it. But as we tend to be ashamed of our own languages. Nobody even to trying to maybe develop the vocabulary or try to, invest more energy in develop the language. So at the end of the day, if you didn't go to school, you don't know how to read, then the information may never reach you. So one thing I'm trying to say is that, yes, we the people here, we that maybe have the privilege should be able to maybe educate our own people. Those people that maybe cannot speak English and French, to be proud of their own language, to accept it, then maybe from that, maybe we can be able not to get access to them and give you the information we want. So anyway, I don't know if I'm making myself understood, but what I'm here is this: information, is very important, especially at this age of globalism. But it seems that how many people in Africa? I don't think many of us can speak French and English. And if you cannot speak French and English, like, okay, you are really somebody which is cut off. So I believe one solution is maybe, instead of maybe focusing on French and English or maybe some of the international languages, you should not pay attention maybe to educate our people in their own languages. They should be proud of it. And I think if you do this one, there will be a way maybe you can now let them understand that maybe whatever you're doing, there's a better way of doing it, right? Because if the person does not know how to read English and French, so how does he know, how he's going to understand the word of pollution and climate change? Many things, they may really have the simple main idea about this. So anyway, I think I'm speaking for long. I'm not a panelist, I'm just contributor, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Here that one of the things that COP26 wants to achieve is democratization, and that is reflected in the goal number 2 that has been declared by Mr. Alok Sharma, who's the president of the COP26, and that is and communication in local languages. Otherwise, it will not just be effective. So I think that.
Thank you.
I would like to add one point.
Sophia, do you have any point to add?
Yes, even known that, in Mexico, we have like 68 Indian groups, and they have their own language. So it's been also a challenge to translate, to do this translation, with them. Spanish, it's really the national language, but there's some groups that they don't speak Spanish, believe it or not. So one of the things it works for us was the safeguards standards that the World Bank has to give us credit or a donation with GEF. We have to accomplish this the environmental and social framework, and they have really strong standards about the safeguards. Mostly, if you have these Indian groups in the project involved. So this can be very helpful, not only to accomplish these things for the World Bank, but it can help a lot to do any project with them, because it's a guide that can help everybody to get this to accomplish the principles of the environmental democracy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Because some of these projects, particularly international projects, they insist on the local beneficiaries' participation and their understanding and all. Yeah, it really helped. Also making some changes in the political scenario. Okay, Dr. Shuprasad Reddy garu, you have raised a hand. Anything you want to ask? Now you see, we are moving from the bottlenecks to percolate information and participation. Now we are moving to what we can do in coming 1.5 months to reach out and disseminate the information and also sensitize, if not the people, people's representatives. Okay, then they can take care of. Okay, so we are moving to the other side of it. Before that, let me take some questions from Dr. Shuprasad Reddy garu. You have a question?
Yes, I would like to be a Democrat to express my views. First of all, congratulations, it's a wonderful session going on. I would like to add whether after 5 years, this COP26 would identify whether the goals which have been earmarked 5 years ago has percolated down to the grassroots level, wherein the people participatory, or at least could people understand, the commoners could understand what COP26 is all about and what are those emissions and all sorts of things. That is one thing. The second aspect is it really democratization or gross capitalization, commercialization of COP26? 100 billion for the technology and all sorts of things developed countries will contribute. What I feel is, instead, see, India is totally diversified from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, rich in traditions. Why not you allow such indigenous methods to safeguard and to save environment, which allows the livelihood, the persistent livelihood? And I wanted to just put this, why not?
Yeah, one thing, Dr. Shuprasad Reddy garu, you have already coming to the summing up. Okay? The first question is, does it percolate to the COP26? Yeah, the most important thing is all the global conferences, whoever conducting, like UN is the key player in conducting these things. And it is the responsibility of the respective member countries to, ensure the percolation. Hope I am correct, Rituraj and Sophia. It is the respective countries, that is their responsibility, not the UN's responsibility.
Absolutely, sir. And as we all know, COP26 or the Paris Agreement is both a bottoms-up and a top-down agreement. It is dynamic. When we say top-down, means all the countries, irrespective of size or financial status, agreed on achieving certain targets. And when we say bottoms-up, means countries have the liberty to make their own contributions on how to reach that targets, their own pathway on how to reach the targets. So in India, if we have the resilience, if we have the knowledge, I think it is imperative for the government to ensure that we follow that pathway to achieving those very targets.
Yeah. To add to you, one point, Subbarao, I'll just add only one point, because why I ask this is, the countries are being represented by elected representatives. The discussions, decisions, debates should have taken place on the floor of assembly or parliament.
Now we are coming.
So that it percolates. That's what I am asking. Whether
our second half is on that, please. We have only discussed whether percolation is going on, awareness is improving, what are the bottlenecks, why participation is not happening. So, Dr. Purushottam Reddy, yes, Murali Krishna garu, I have seen it. Dr. Purushottam Reddy garu.
Sir, Murali garu, చాలాసేపు let him మాట్లాడు.
And okay, Murali Krishna garu.
Sir, we were talking of the communication problem and the spread of languages, too many languages in the same country. One relative speaks in English and the other relative speaks in French. There is a solution. I don't know why these powers be that are not looking at. Did Charlie Chaplin ever had the language barrier to communicate? He made all the entire world laugh. Laurel and Hardy, they made the entire world laugh. And present era, Mr. Bean is making entire world laugh. And in those Mookie days, there were adventure movies, religious movies, all sorts of movies. And the UNO, with all its funds, so many funds they have, they can make these Mookie movies without dialogue and give it to all the countries to make copies and circulate. Communication is never the problem, sir. Only thing is the problem is the powers that are, and they are not willing to look at the problem. This just one aspect I wanted to say, that language and this is not a barrier. The barrier is the people's minds, especially those that are in power, and especially at UN. UN has become a overhead for the world. They are only talking and taking their salaries and going away without really coming out with anything. They did something in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. After the turn of the century, they are simply concentrating on only taking salaries. Just my point, sir. Please hand it over to Purushottam Reddy, sir.
You brought out a very valid point. This is what calls for visual education. You see, visual education, and most of the NGOs across the world, they are good in, street plays, theater, all other communication systems. I hope others agree with me on this. Okay, there are. It is only the thing that we need a political will to communicate. Yeah, Sophia, you want to say something?
Yes. Well, I know that the government, it's the one who has to see and who has to develop the protection, the way to protect the rights of the citizens. But right now, in our case, in Mexican case, the government, they didn't care about the environmental agenda. They didn't care, and I have to say it like that. I was telling Subarao before we started that in the COP26, the environmental authority is not going to the convention, and that's why I believe and I think, and it's demonstrating in the case of Mexico that the role of the civil society is very important.
Yes.
Because government comes and go, and their interest, it's mostly the economic interest, and they have their own agenda. So when you work for so long time implementing and designing environmental public policies, we know what we have to do. And right now, it's the civil society, and they're going to the convention, for example, to taking care of this agenda that we know that the Mexican government, they're not going to push anything in there. So that's a very important thing, because it's not only the government who has this compromise, or should have the compromise to do it. As civil society, we have to accomplish this compromise,
Yeah, thank you. And Rituraj, I remember, I think you can throw more light. One of the members of Climate Reality came out with climate communication through, deaf and dumb sign language. You remember?
Yes, sir. Yes.
It is the sign language. They were trying to sensitize the deaf and dumb people. So, like that, if there is a will, we can do many things, So, Professor Purushottam Reddy,
Thank you, Subbarao Garu. My video is not, I'm unable to start it.
Let me check, sir.
And don't worry, don't worry. At the outset, I'm really grateful to Murli Garu. Mr. Murli, you have reminded us of Charlie Chaplin,
You
Laurel
can
and
start
Hardy.
the video, Anna, you can start the video on your own.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It was not coming so far. But anyway, thank you, Subbarao Garu. Today, for various reasons, I could not come on time. And my apologies to the entire distinguished gathering. With respects to all of you, I wish to, regarding communication, I wish to comment. I would like to continue where Mr. Murli wonderfully explained. You know, think of those times, Charlie Chaplin, because, sir, because of my age, I have watched all Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy, and other big communicators. And that too at a time when it was a silent movie, right from that particular stage, I remember. Okay. Also, I wish to point out that during the long freedom struggle of India, we have Sophia Madam from Mexico, but I'm talking about India's freedom struggle. You know, Mahatma Gandhi, he could galvanize the entire country, weld India with so many languages, so many identities into one nation. That is why he is known as the father of the nation. And at that time, there was no TV, no smartphone or internet or anything. But yet he could do it because people trusted Gandhi. Not because Gandhiji was a great orator. He was not known for his oratorial skills. He was known for his honesty and because he only spoke what he did, and whatever he spoke, he used to do. That is, there was no gap between his speech and his action. Everything was transparent. That kind of leaders are not there in the world today. There may be here and there few exceptions, but they are not very well known. Unfortunately, today the corporates have taken over. They are controlling the media, they are controlling political parties. In fact, most of the public representatives become the voice of the corporates in the government. And that is the big tragedy. That is why, in spite of UN doing a great job, sensitizing the world, bringing all the nations of the world, promoting a dialogue, and also facilitating a consensus, still you see this gap between an international conference, the promise of a conference, and the performance by individual countries. I wish to just read out one very important quotation from Ralph Nader, because Ralph Nader, you know, the Green Party candidate in America, of course, he did not win, not his fault, but then he was always the public advocate there. And as far as this particular COP26 also, he has been identified along with David Attenborough, these two eminent personalities. So according to Ralph Nader, he, in his, I'm quoting him, the quote begins, the truth is that the liberty in a democracy is not safe if the people tolerate the growth of private power to a point where it becomes stronger than the democratic state itself. This is Ralph Nader in 2021. Recently, he very, very vehemently pointed out, we are all talking about democracy because today is International Day for Democracy. It's a very important day. We are all gathered here to discuss citizens' power. It is our planet Earth, and we are all endangered. We want to save it, but can we do it? How many obstacles are there in between? The media is controlled by the corporates, and including TV, print media, our representatives are not representing our view. In India, in spite of the fact that we were demanding a special parliament session be conducted before COP26, nothing is happening. No political party is talking about it. These are very serious issues. Last time also I pointed out. And we are very lucky. Thank you for joining us, Rituraj. Collectively, yes, we should all be working. We have Professor Emmanuel from South Korea and distinguished Sophia Fortina and other dignitaries. Let us continue the dialogue. Today it has been, my voice is not cooperating, so kindly permit me. I will be listening to the, but I may not be in a position to contribute because of a bad throat. Sorry, Subarna, please carry on.
Now, we have divided the entire session into two halves. The first half, we discussed on why the information is, what are the bottlenecks for dissemination of information and access to information, and building the awareness bottlenecks, why it could not happen, and participation. Okay. The second half is what we can do, the civil society groups, in this 1.5 months, so that at least we can take some glimpses of citizens' voice at the COP26.
Yeah.
Second half, you were talking about the parliamentary session and those things.
In the second half.
Yes, now we are starting.
Just one, I'll speak for 2 minutes.
Please.
Actually, you have said it so many times. The very fact that you have planned about 26 webinars or even more, if necessary, on the very important topic, climate change, and as a run-up to COP26. So I think as a civil society group, we have done, that's the right thing we should be doing. Secondly, if you remember the Government of India intention to dilute EIA rules, EIA 2020 draft rules. At that particular time, more than 4 million people, they sent emails and representations to the Government of India stating their objections. That is, in a country, we think there's not much of education, but 4 million is not a small number. People objected, and I consider it as a very big victory for the people. Similarly, on similar lines, we should encourage the students and the faculty members in different colleges, and also the local governments will have a very special meeting for them also, and we'll do our best to take it to the people, because ultimately it is we the people who are going to take the beating of climate change. Therefore, we have to continue to be vigilant and do our part. I think, and as you also mentioned, you should try to give our inputs directly to COP26 Secretariat, or maybe on our behalf, we authorize you to be our spokesperson at COP26, because you already have that rich experience in international conferences. Sorry, my voice is troubling.
No, we understand it, So I was just, briefing you. I know that you were tied up with the similar discussions on democracy from 7 to 8. So we do understand, and I just explained briefly you on this. So in the second half, how do we create mechanisms and seed the ideas of disseminating information and making the people to know. The proposal is, it may be different in different countries like Mexico, South Korea, and Ghana. My friend can talk, and other friends like Dr. Sujata from Orissa and Patro. I think you are also from Orissa, Mr. Patro. Okay, so how do we reach that? One is, I'm just proposing, and I need your feedback as a panelist and also as observers. Can we ask this secretariats of state legislative assembly, the secretariat of state assembly, convene a special session on climate change and COP26. Similarly, with the parliament and through PMO's office, can we ask this, okay, to reach out?
That's a very good suggestion. We have every right to demand a special session. We can send our request mails to them, demanding of course, our right is there. Whether they will do it or not, it is their headache. But at least, we would have done our job, and we can, we can go to the public saying, look, we have demanded, but the government did not move. Because normally in a democracy, the duration of the parliament session or whenever it has to meet or not to meet is decided by the leader of the majority party. In the case of parliament, it is the prime minister. In the case of state assembly, it is the chief minister. And I can assure you, I'm not very sure of Mr. Modi, but in most of the state governments, they are not willing because they are not interested in encouraging this kind of intellectual debate in their respective states, because they have a vested interest in keeping the people in the darkness. Darkness here means ignorance, because only then they can, rake up their small little sentiments and continue to be in power. So we will definitely, tomorrow, day after, we should be able to send, we'll send our request letters demanding special session of parliament and also state assemblies. This is for India, but similarly in every country, our friend, Madam Sophia Ji, Professor Emmanuel, in every country, I request the distinguished members to take the initiative and you demand. This is democracy. Ultimately, it is we the people. Yes, you have a right to demand. Let this be discussed in your country's parliament or assembly or whatever.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Well, social media, it has been really a strong arm for democracy here in my country. As I said, right now, the president, his party has the main number of seats in my Congress. So there have been a lot of changes in the legislation against the environmental democracy, and they don't like we have a very good laws in Mexico. The problem is that there's no respect for this law.
Everywhere.
For the law, yes.
Even in India.
So we have a very good legislation for information and transparency, and the government, they didn't care about it. So whenever you try to move in that way, in the legal way, it's very difficult to push any environmental initiative, even that we see it's against the presidential projects. So we as civil society, we are trying to make a lot of noise in the social media, and it helps a little bit to maintain the interest in environmental issues. It's been really difficult. It's the first time. It's not like the other governments were really compromised with that, but this one is really against the environmental legislation, and all the changes they've been doing in the Congress really make us really fragile about the climate change aspects. So that's the only way we are moving. And well, for the COP26, we're trying to move our agenda with other governments, Latin American governments, to take our as a government, as a Latin American group to move our agenda with this government. But it's kind of difficult whenever you have a government that they don't they are not pulling these initiatives.
Thank you. Rituraj, are you there? Suddenly your connection got disconnected. Rituraj? Okay.
Yeah.
Rituraj?
Disconnected.
Disconnected. Okay. So we will wait, when he gets back and all.
Yeah, he has come.
Rituraj is here. Rituraj? Rituraj? Okay. Before Rituraj gets fully restored and all, what I would like to know is, I would like to know, if Dr. Sujata has any queries or suggestions, and also request Mr. S.N. Patro and Naveen, I think is Naveen. So I invite Dr. Sujata, please. Dr. Sujata, unmute your mic.
Yes. Thank you. It is my pleasure to put forth my views before this August body. I will not repeat, but only one thing I may add, that to educate, besides this public participation and putting this before the legislation and all these things and visual education, I may add one thing, that to educate our intellectuals from different sects, that is, it should not be confined, this discussion, it should not be confined to only environmentalists, but all intellectuals from different fields, they should be also educated. That is, they should, in my practical experience, I can tell you that that is, intellectuals means I talk about teachers, judges. They are not aware about this, the panic the earth is going to face, that this whole human kingdom is in danger now. They don't understand, because one example I am telling you, that groundwater level is everywhere same. They don't understand. Kotak city is surrounded by rivers, so that they think that Kotak will not be affected. The whole, we are thinking of and discussing about the whole world, and that to how to save it from saving. So that if the judges are also not aware about it, the teachers, lecturers, they are not aware about it. So that they have to be also included, and they have to be educated regarding this, so that it can, we are talking about how to take it, reach to the grassroots level. If all sects, all branches of intellectuals will be educated, then certainly it can reach to the grassroots level.
Thank you so much. Yeah. We are actually making all attempts to reach through teachers forum, doctors forum, everybody. And Dr. TSPR channel is supporting us through the YouTube so that these discussions are available to anybody, any section of the society. So Rituraj, what we discussed is in the Sophia said the social media is very active in the Mexico, and they can only work through the social media in bringing some kind of a awareness and reach to the citizens across the Mexico. And I'm sure she will also work with other NGO groups in Latin America, so that similar ideas can be done. So one thing is what we felt is writing some representative some letters to Secretariat, Parliament, and state assemblies to convene a special session, and also through the social media. And I would like to know your views and recommendations on this, so that we can systematically work for the coming 1.5 months.
I definitely agree with Sophia and everybody else who think that social media is empowering for democracy for citizens, and incredibly so. We have seen the impacts in Assam actually, and Dr. Purushottam Reddy had earlier mentioned about the draft EIA 2020 last year. I think that was a positive impact of civil society mobilization through social media. I myself uh, got at least 2 or 3 op-ed published, at least 10 magazines, interviews, and so many webinars opposing the draft EIA 2020. And these were actually widely shared. All these concerns got uh, the attention of the government as we intended to, and then I think the response has been quite what we wanted to keep it on hold. Another thing that I would like to talk about is something from my state in Assam, and that was about the extension of coal mining in a wildlife sanctuary called Dehing Patkai. There was a very active social media campaign led by students and other civil society organizations. And I think that had a huge impact because the government actually listened to uh, everybody, and they they upgraded the wildlife sanctuary to a national park. There is an ongoing campaign as well opposing the expansion of palm oil in various parts of Northeast India. So all these issues are important, and I mention them because climate change per se, when we talk about it, may not be enough to get the kind of social media mobilization that we think of, that we require. But when it comes to a pertinent issue related to a particular area or a landscape or a animal, I think that really inspires people to be active on social media, whether it's destruction of the elephant habitat, whether it's tigers facing uh, the extinction because of climate change impacts in their habitat, the water issue. I think all of these correlated issues, one by one, should be highlighted, and we could use a common hashtag like hashtag COP26, hashtag COP26 Coalition, which is a global network of civil society, COP26 Coalition. And at the same time, Ministry of Environment, Forest, My Government India, even FCC, we do the hashtag thing so that more these hashtags are shared, more it reaches the intended people, that is the influencers, the government people. And they are forced to uh, do something. And we can also include one common denominator for each of these diverse issues that we use as hashtags, and that could be convene parliamentary session on climate change, okay, or special climate COP26 session on uh, climate or parliament. So if we use that, I think that might have really the effect we want, especially when the time we have is really limited. It's just 1.5 months, but if we want this to happen, this has to happen within the next 15, 20 days, during which time such a campaign has to go viral, right? So we take a broad-based issue with one agenda to demand a parliamentary session on climate change made up of 26.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Thank you. What we can do is we should work out on a timeline basis and say maybe within 1 week the draft letter will be circulated among the members, and please go through that, and then we submit, because they also need time to convene the sessions. We should also understand that and how they go about it. And Dr. Emmanuel, it's already midnight in South Korea, so he asked permission to leave, so that's better. And Mr. Philbert from SoTome and he represents Ivory Coast. He is still stuck with the Environment Ministry's discussions today, which just happened. Otherwise, he was very active. Yeah. And before we can, I would like to, I'm just proposing, you see, is to have another international, webinar on a convenient time and date, so that we can bring more civil society groups for the debate. This, Sophia and, Rituraj, you can think of it. Okay.
Sure.
Please give the feedback so that we start disseminating the information, what we are doing here and what other groups are doing, in other countries and all, so that we can build some kind of a solidarity before the launch of COP26. This is what I felt, and please think of it and share with us. And Dr. TSPR channel, Dr. Shiv Prasad Reddy, he supports us, and we can connect to any part of the world. And we had the experience of connecting almost 10 countries last year, actually. And you can also think, Rituraj, on the civil society groups from the US, to connect and have some discussions. And Dr. Shivrasad Reddy garu, do you have anything to say, please?
Yeah, only one thing, because people have to understand there is a misconception that this is social media and mainstream channels. That's an old forgotten story. I was doing live shows for mainstream satellite channels for a long time, titled Midday Politics and everything. Only the show will be live. After that, we give a link. The show we may repeat on the channel, but that is very costly. So what we used to do, we used to generate a link, and that we source it through media, social media only. So now the live which we are doing, it is as good as a live show on any satellite channel or any network, and also a live seminar or webinar wherein physically also you try to participate. So the beauty of this technology is, in your home comforts, office comforts, we are trying to meet on any particular issue here, COP26 and democracy, demanding first the state legislatures. First it should start from the panchayat level, from here, village secretariat, then comes municipalities, then comes state legislature, then comes parliament. We should make them, force them to come out with a resolution. Why? Because we have to popularize the concept. What is COP26? Until and unless you popularize it, there will not be any pressure on, right from sarpanchas to the MPs, because these days everything is funded, and even the electoral bonds have become very indiscreet now. There is no transparency. Now you understand who is going to sponsor and fund. So to create that awareness, this is the best media, because tomorrow I am told there will be technology wherein through the torch of your mobile on the wall you can watch it live. You don't need even a monitor and screen. When such is the case, this media will be the mainstay and mainstream media. Thank you.
Thank you. And our main observer, Sri Murli Krishna Garu from ESA, Pennsylvania. Sir, you have already made a breakthrough in advising us on Mookie movies, the universal communication system. Murli Krishna Garu, please. Murali Krishna Garu. Murali Krishna. Murali Krishna Garu. Hello.
He's not available. I think he is trying to connect. Wait, sir. Murali Garu.
Yeah.
Switch on your audio, sir.
Meanwhile, I request Professor Purushottam Reddy, but I cannot, put pressure on his throat problem. Few words, if you can, sir, before we.
Yeah, I think I will go by Shiv Prasad Reddy's opinion, because he mentioned about involving the Gram Panchayats to begin with, the local body at the rural level. And as already pointed out, last time we got the president of the Sarpanchas Association, who stays in Karta. So I'll try to contact him tomorrow evening. And we'll directly go to a few villages where we are in touch with about 100 villages. My students are there. So we will hold a Grama Sabha, and there Subbarao-ji and all those who are available in Hyderabad, Dr. Shiv Prasad Reddy and whoever is available, will go there, we'll talk to them. What is their perception of COP26 or climate change? So we'll ask them to speak, and that can be recorded, and maybe it can become the starting point of a major awareness campaign. This can be done, Subbarao Garu.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And Murali Krishna Garu, are you there?
No, I think there is some problem, sir, connectivity problem.
Okay, no problem. We can. These are the series of things which are happening.
Yeah, my request to you all is subscribe, support, and share it across. This link should be shared across the globe. The fundamentals which have been discussed, I promise you, except the last evening, this evening's Purushottamana's this thing, I don't think anywhere these fundamentals were discussed because of Subbarao Garu's experience, the way he conducts, that too in 2 hours, mind-boggling. He gets everything done. So this is the most wonderful session, democracy and our environment, our survival. This should be shared across the globe. It will invite opinion.
Thank you so much, and I thank Sophia, Rituraj, Dr. Sujata Das, S.N. Patro, Dr. Emmanuel, Murali Krishna Garu from ESA, and Naveen Reddy, and above all, the young student who opened up the debate, Sania Singhal from Symbiosis Law College. Good night. Take care. Good morning to Sophia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste, namaste. Good night.
But Deepu